So Dr. Reyes and Dr. Baker, it seems like you come from very diverse entry points to talk about violence. Can you tell me a little bit about where you both come from and how you come to this work?
So let me tell you how we met. I believe the first time I met you, Patrick, you were presenting at a conference, and Patrick had brought to the conference the machete that he had used to sever the heads of iceberg lettuce as he was working in the fields of Salinas, California as a young man, where his family is from. And I was struck by his pedagogy and the way that he came to describe working in the field made me forever think of my field, the field of religious education, differently. And it also took me back to the field of my adolescence, where I was a white Protestant growing up in a household middle class privilege. And as I came into my first career of journalism, my awakening to justice issues had occurred around covering a story in my neighborhood where the local migrant laborers, mostly of Mexican descent, were being moved on after hard frost that had killed the strawberry crop. And usually the story is that you tell the story of the loss, the dollars, from the perspective of the wealthy landowners. And this is Central Florida, and I had taken Spanish. I had friends who were migrant laborers, and I went instead and covered the story that was happening on the ground, where they were being asked to move on before they had their next crop ready for harvest. And it was in that moment as a journalist that I was awakened to this call of justice. Like, where was my church paying attention to this? They were not paying attention to this. This was not part of the story. And so as I came to know Patrick's work, we began to share stories, and I learned that there was this convergence, that we really do come from different parts on the loop and share a passion for the church creating spaces to restore wholeness where it had been one of the main players in bringing violence to our land and to our people. And Patrick's history is so tied to that, so I invite you to jump in here.
Yeah, I mean, even that moment where I was at REA, it's a tension I hold in being in an academic space, honoring the folks and the hard labor that my family and my community did to even allow me to get into that space. So taking a lettuce knife and showing it around, making us imagine something new with it, despite the hardships that are being experienced in the fields, was a moment for me. But then we started working at FTE, similarly with young people who've discerned a call to ministry, 18 to 30-year-olds. My work now is with the doctoral folks, so doctoral students of color, who are thinking about how to do academy differently. And I think where our convergence is now, and really around this work, is how do you have these multiple points of entry? So if you see violence erupting around you, or you see these conditions that are not conducive to joy, how do you interrupt that at multiple levels? So whether it's sexual violence on a campus culture, which is rampant right now, or in the fields of Salinas with young people who are experiencing gang violence, the stories we tell often are around what happened that allowed for us to do something new, just to innovate and build capacity for joy in these moments. I think that's our convergence now, is at our various levels within institutional life. How are we creating that capacity and coming up with process and design and all these fun things to do within the church that we think is newish, and exciting, that give people an entry point, a different entry point.
And it helps with the sense of violence as being overwhelming.
Yes.
And, I see a lot of my peers just kind of checking out and retreating into the safety of their own gated communities or gated churches, and not taking the risk of entering into relationship where we share stories and find that we really do belong to one another. Yeah. It is the lie that we don't. But that has to happen at the personal level. And part of the joy is that personal connection of being at different places on this loop that I keep drawing with my hands. And then the vocabulary that the church and the academy give us hopefully allow us to invite others into that place of building community from our positions of difference.
Yeah.